Heath, what should I do at wide receiver? Give me the goods.
There's great wide receiver value available pretty much everywhere in the draft this year. So, except for maybe round 3, I think if you want to feel comfortable with your wide receiver room, you take one in the first 2 rounds. You can take 2 more in round 4 through 6. You want to make sure that you have, I would like to make sure that I have probably 5 wide receivers before I get to the double-digit rounds, because other than Luther Burden, there's nobody that really excites me in that range.
Jamie, what do I do at wide receiver?
You try and get 2 or 3 in the first 5 rounds, and then you want to make sure you get one of 3 of the guys you just mentioned if you can, Pierce Alabuka and Matthew Golden, because there's so much upside for those guys. If you missed on guys in that range, I would look for the group of Keon Coleman, Darnell Mooney, and Luther Burden, as Heath said. And then if you really, really miss on guys, then you start to look for Demario Douglas, Cedric Tillman, Romeo Dobbs, and maybe now my favorite is still Marvin Mims, but Troy Franklin very late. Like, take a second Broncos receiver with one of your last picks.
Dave, what do I do at wide receiver?
This is the most important thing that you need to do before you draft. This is more important than what I said with running backs. You need to go through a rank list of wide receivers and get a number in your brain of how many of them you think can average 15 or more PPR points per game. I think you're going to be shocked by the number that you come up with. The lower that number is, the more you should prioritize wide receivers within the first 4 rounds of your draft. You do not want to be the team without some good wide receivers when your draft is over. And so if you start with 2 running backs and a tight end and a quarterback, and you think you're going to recover that position, it's going to be really hard for you. I think that just the biggest change this year compared to past years in fantasy is a lack of stud receivers on draft day. There's a lot of guys that we really love that are breakout candidates. We already talked about Ibuka, Pearsall, Matt Golden. I would add Keon Coleman to that list. There are a lot of guys that could be really good that you can get in the middle rounds. I don't know if you necessarily want those guys to be like the anchor of your wide receiver group, or maybe even the wide receiver 2 on your team. So you put like a little bit of extra priority at the receiver position, especially if catches count. Half PPR, full PPR. I think it's really important to go after those big time receivers.
Well, one thing we've been saying for a while is, one of your first 2 picks, it doesn't have to be a wide receiver, but it's advisable because, once you get, especially if you're picking late, right? You get to the 3-4 turn, you may not love what you're seeing there. Now Mike Evans looks a lot more appealing now than he did, but I think we all like to come away with 1 wide receiver with our first 2 picks, right? I mean, again, not a requirement, but advisable.
Depends where you pick, because I think if you're picking in the early part of the first round and you're saying one of your first 2 picks?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you end up taking Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, maybe McCaffrey, and you get to that round 2 spot, and it's one of the tight end, you go tight end, and then you come back to round 3 and you're staring at T. Higgins or Lad McConkey, let's say, or JSN, whoever you're.
Tyreek.
Tyreek. I wouldn't put Tyreek there at this point, but those other 3 guys versus the potential of anyone from Chase Brown, Jonathan Taylor. I don't think Josh Jacobs, but depending on ADP you look like, Bucky Irving, like you could see those guys there. Like, I would rather take the running back, which is strange for me to say, but like I don't want to reach for those receivers. I'd rather take 2 running backs coming out of that.
And what you have to decide, because I talked about it, like 4 through 6, and sometimes I feel like I just need to move some of the round 4 guys into round 3 because I like rounds 4 through 6 so much more than I like round 3 right now. But if you have 2 elite running backs and an elite quarterback or tight end, are you okay with a receiving core, and enter your own names here, but of something like Cortland Sutton, Ted McMillan, and DK Metcalf, or something like that, like 3 of those guys, or Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with those 3 guys as your 3 wide receivers, if you're elite at 3 other positions, then I think it's fine. I've done that. I've probably more often skipped wide receiver in the first 3 rounds than I have skipped running back in the first 3 rounds. I'd prefer to do neither.
And I think it matters so much 2 receiver league versus 3 receiver league.
Yep.
the whole draft is that is the biggest thing for me is 2 receivers versus 3 receivers. It changes wide receivers. It changes how I draft quarterback. It changes how I draft tight end. It's a really big deal, I think, to me. I don't know.
I thought about that, and I think because I said that it doesn't change those positions for me, and I'm going to amend that. It doesn't change where I draft the elite players at those positions.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't change where I draft Bowers, McBride, or Kittle. It wouldn't change where I draft Lamar, Allen, or Daniels, and maybe Hurts and Burrow too. But it does change the guys I would normally draft in the round 7 range.
I would say, just based on the FFT Open League, which is 2 receivers, 1 flex, I really wanted to come away with it with either an elite tight end or a top 5 quarterback. Not necessarily both, but when I only have to start 2 wide receivers, I think that gives you more of an opportunity to be elite at tight end or quarterback. And I'm not saying you can't do that in a 3 receiver league, but it just makes it easier. All right. So that's my thought on it. I mean, obviously I'm not speaking for everyone. I do think the strength though, Heath, of wide receiver is, you said 4 through 6. I might even amend it to say rounds 4 through 7, but yeah, go ahead.
I would also say if I took that approach, it becomes much harder for me to click Emeka Egbuka in round 6.
As your what? Wide receiver 2?
As my wide receiver 3.
What approach?
If I don't have a true wide receiver 1. If
Oh.
I'm trying to piece together a receiving core with Cortland Sutton or DK Metcalf or somebody like that as my wide receiver 1, I really would like to have 3 wide receivers before I took Egbuka.
So, like, who are the receivers you would take ahead of him? I'm trying to think of like the profile that you're looking for.
Well, I think just based on how Heath has drafted so far, you're probably talking about guys like Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp. You would take the.
And I was actually thinking or somebody like Calvin Ridley, or like just somebody.
Okay.
We're very excited about these younger guys, but their floor is obviously quite a bit shakier than some of the guys that are being drafted in the same. Jerry Judy's being drafted right in the same range.
I don't think anybody's taking those guys over Ridley. Maybe Judy. I'd be surprised over Judy, but
No, I think it's.
I might take them over Judy.
I think in my I'll look at it now, Adam. Although I've got another draft starting, so.
Oh crap! Forgot about that. We have our IDP draft right now. Okay.
yeah, baby, love this draft.
Yeah, not me. All right, let's sleeper breakout bust. Just give me a name: Heath, Jamie, Dave, sleeper wide receiver.
Luther Burden.
Keon Coleman.
I like the Keon Coleman call a lot. Mooney.
Okay, breakout: Heath, Jamie, Dave.
Sorry, I was trying to look something up for you. Now I'm trying to think of names. I will go with Travis Hunter.
Ricky Pearsall.
Okay, 2 Pearsalls and a bust. Heath.
I will say that the bust is going to be Tyreek Hill.
DJ Moore.
Terry McLaurin.
Okay.